Final Fantasy XI, to the shock of many, is still running a subscription-based model in 2021. It has been for its entire existence. It's never really offered anything other than that. It's always had a subscription. If anything, it's gone up in price. Seriously, now you're gonna pay an extra $2 per Mog wardrobe, which is kind of ridiculous, to be honest, in 2021. But here we are. There are other games that are still running that were in existence before or after Final Fantasy XI that also offer a subscription-based model. Some offer other payment methods that we'll, kind of get into in a little bit, but for the most part, Final Fantasy XI is near the top with the most successful that have ever existed in terms of offering that single payment structure and just sticking to it for almost 20 years now. I tried to get some easy data on competitors, the longest running MMO offering subscription models, stuff like that. But it's so tough to find specifics because payment methods change over the years. Some games offered a subscription model and then change to more of like a buy to play with a subscription or free to play with a subscription. If you want to, it's optional. So many different ways to approach it. But there's no denying that Final Fantasy XI has to be one of the more successful and longest running. I know EverQuest is still out there, still going with its subs, so that's insane. Obviously, World of Warcraft in pure numbers is definitely beating Final Fantasy XI. I actually bet Final Fantasy XIV at this point, in terms of total players played, has probably surpassed 11, probably long ago. But 11 will always stay a special place right in here as the ultimate MMO in my mind. But we're not here to talk about competitors or anything like that. I just want to talk about Final Fantasy XI's payment model. And in 2021, does it make sense? Because newer releases and MMOs over the years have tried different payment methods and to varying degrees of success, and I kind of want to chat about it. Now, I know a lot of players are saying that they would return to Final Fantasy XI if it was free to play, if it offered a different payment method other than just the monthly subscription. And I hear you, I don't see it happening. This isn't going to be a video about me describing like my perfect payment structure of Final Fantasy XI, although I would love to see a combined Final Fantasy XIV, Final Fantasy XI payment grouped thing. I would easily pay that every month, and I think it would help bring players back to both of those games more often than leaving them. But this isn't a wish list of like what I want to see. I just want to talk about how the sub model for Final Fantasy XI changed how the game evolved, and still to this day how it affects it. Partially, I got this idea because I was playing New World, Amazon's new MMO that just released in the past couple of weeks, which is a buy-to-play model. You pay $40 or $50, whatever you feel like playing, once, and then you can play forever throughout all of their updates. Now, they do have an in-game cash shop, which I think is influenced by that decision to have a single purchased time. They've got to draw in money for those updates elsewhere somewhere. But overall, I think that's appealing for games in 2021, that I can pay once, try it out. If I enjoy it, great, keep playing. If I'm waiting for more updates, I can come back later and I have to worry about whether or not I'm subscribed, whether or not I'm involved in this monthly payment structure with all the other monthly things that are tying up on top of, like my Netflix and HBO and internet. Jesus, there's too many. And I think there's something to be said in 2021 for being able to pay once and then follow the game for its entire life cycle and not worry about whether or not I'm subbed. If somebody says, hey, do you want to hop in and check this game out again? I totally can, whenever time I want. It makes it much less invasive mentally to hop into that game. I can just try it for, the price of a standard video game. It's not that bad. Now, there is a cash shop in-game to help them support financially the game over the years as they continue to update it and hopefully offer new content and features and changes. That money has to come from somewhere. It can't just come from, more purchases of the game. It won't match the need of financial support. But that's going to be a topic for another day. Let's get back to Final Fantasy XI, and it got me thinking about the sub model that it's stuck with forever. The most obvious impact of the Final Fantasy XI financial subscription is the gateway that it provides, which I think offers both pros and cons, but probably more cons. Look, we've all been here. We've all hit that low point in our Final Fantasy XI Vana'diel experience where we're just like, you know what, I'm not having fun. Maybe it's just not clicking. Maybe a lot of people stepped away that so you're not playing with friends anymore. Or maybe you've just been playing too much and you're just burnt out. Whatever the fact is, you've said to yourself, I think I'm done. Maybe not done forever, maybe not done even for that long, but you're done for the moment. And the realization immediately hits you that you're paying monthly. There is a bill that's going to come in the mail for this game that you've now admitted to yourself, I'm not playing. That's kind of mentally draining. There's this guilt that hangs over your head. Like, I don't want to just pay. I've paid for months and months of Final Fantasy 14 subscriptions that I knew I wasn't playing for. Purely, really, because I wanted to maintain my housing that I own. But there is just like, I was like, maybe I'll hop back in. Maybe I might play. And then I don't for months on end. Wasted money. But the other side of that gate is when you're out, when you're not paying, if you've never played. And even if you get a free copy of the game somehow, or a very cheap copy, you've got to say to yourself, am I going to hop in and start playing again? It's always this thing like, am I going to be playing again? Because I'm going to pay for it each month. Am I going to play enough each month to justify that cost? Now, again, the cost we're talking about is like $13 to $15 plus now the $4 for the mod wardrobe, but essentially just a little bit. This isn't life-changing money, but this is a hobby. This is a side thing. It's a fun activity I do. I don't really want to pay more money for it. I've been paying money for it for years. Point is, there's always that little thing in the back of your mind whenever you're looking at it saying like, should I play this game again? That's saying, do you want to drop money? Because we've all been here at least once too, where you hop back in. I remember during the Abyssia phase, I hopped back in. I was so excited. I was like, you know what? I can't believe I ever quit. I'm coming back. This is going to be amazing. I paid the money. I logged in. That night, first Abyssia party, I was there for 4 hours. Within the first hour, I was like, this is why I quit. I can't stand this. I've been very outspoken. I always hated what Abyssia did to the leveling process. But that was my point, is I immediately hopped in and regretted hopping in and playing. And it wouldn't have been a big deal. I would have just been like, you know what? That's the night of my life. That sucks, but we're moving on. But it was also the little things like, I paid for this whole month and I know I'm not going to use any more this month. So yeah, it's this gateway going in and getting out of the game that you're always just like questioning and justifying. Is it worth the money that I'm spending? Versus something like New World or Guild Wars 2. You hop in, you play for a week, you're like, that was fun. I'm glad I bought that 5 years ago or whatever it was. It's not as big of a deal because you're not putting this monthly investment. And again, not that the monthly investment has to be that big. It's just kind of the way that it affects the way you look at what you're playing. When you're paying a subscription, you're always justifying, did I get the value out of that subscription each month? Versus paying one time, did you have fun with it at some point? Then yeah, it was probably worth it. Joy is too hard to come by. But enough of the gateway in terms of financially getting you in and out of the game. There's also the positive side, which is just, it's a gateway for players in general. Hear me out. Do you guys remember when Socom 1 came out on the PS2 and it had those incredibly it totally justified restrictions on, you needed, I think it was DSL or Ethernet, like you needed an upgraded internet connection, we'll say. You couldn't use 56K, which was the most common form of internet out there at that point. The Ethernet concept, broadband, was kind of young. It wasn't really widespread. I was devastated. I didn't have it. And I somehow convinced my parents over the course of like a year that the world was moving on without us and I needed it for school, definitely. And I was able to play Socom 1 on the PS2. Socom 1 introduced the concept of voice chat to me for the first time. Now, computer PC aficionados had already been having voice chat in video games for a long time, but it had never come to console before, at least to my knowledge, or not in a big way. And Socom introduced that. And this introduced a weird time of multiplayer gaming where like everyone was really thrilled and excited to be playing this brand new experience. Socom was a ton of fun. Voice chat was cool, but they took it very seriously. Everyone was really excited to be there. And part of that was the gateway to entry. Not everybody could get in. It wasn't this easy, like absolutely anybody that owns a PS2 can play this online. You needed a relatively young and expensive, high quality internet connection to play. There's also kind of the side idea that like at this point, everyone still sort of thought of their online persona as a reflection of their real life self, which sounds obvious, but nobody does that anymore. Everybody's ridiculous online now. They're like, it's not even real. The internet isn't a real place. It's totally real. There are people on the other side of whatever you're doing and saying, but people forget that all the time. The world has evolved to this crazy new state where like your online self, nobody cares. people do and say crazy things online. I just remember playing on the PS2, and I'd love to hear if you guys had a different experience. Playing Socom on the PS2 with voice chat, everybody took every game very seriously. The chat was very constructive, productive. People weren't mean, and if they were mean, they would apologize. It was just different. And then by the time the 360 era, where Xbox Live kind of introduced online chat gaming easily to the masses, at that point, high quality internet, broadband had kind of expanded. I don't even know if it was required at that point. It might have been. At some point, it was just so pervasive. But suddenly, Xbox Live offered a pretty cheap option for online multiplayer gaming with easy to use voice chat and a console experience to basically everybody. And everybody had it, and the internet grew up, and everyone was assholes. Everybody was assholes. The concept, this is, maybe it existed before. Like I said, in PC gaming, it probably existed for a long time, but on consoles, the concept of like griefers and kids screaming obscenities and everybody on the planet knowing way too much about your mom, it was ridiculous. The evolution of online gaming voice chat to where we know it today, I think really started during the Xbox 360 era. And Microsoft, I blame you. I think you destroyed the internet. No, I don't know. There was probably, I'd love to hear a research, a study on the evolution of how people behave on the internet. But I do remember the PS2 Socom experience with that headset. It was very different. But seriously, I don't say that this is the only source of these many changes that evolved. It wasn't the first time that these concepts existed, like griefing and screaming at each other online in an online game. I'm sure they existed long before, but it did seem that in the early days of console voice chat, people still act like the online world was a reflection of themselves and in the real world, which is important. You know, people maintain that a little differently. You don't walk into a restaurant and just scream at everybody. Well, some people do. Not me. I say all this to kind of, I'm bringing it back. Broadband internet was a gatekeeper that prevented a lot of the public from having access to this game. So everybody that finally got in and was able to chat and play this game, they were just so thrilled to be there. People seemed a little bit nicer. Final Fantasy XI was kind of similar. It had this huge PS2 barrier to entry. You had to buy this hard drive. It was like $100, maybe $150, and it came with the game, the hard drive, and then on top of that, you had the subscription fee. Anybody playing Final Fantasy XI on the PS2 really wanted to play that game. And with the nature of Final Fantasy XI, where you had a single character that you couldn't change the name, and like your experience in the world, people would remember you. Everyone, it was nice. Everybody was kind to each other, and for the most part, there was like a civility throughout the game. And part of that is the gatekeeping that the financial barrier presented, because anybody that was there really wanted to be there. I mean, I saved up for so long so I could play Final Fantasy XI. Compare that to a free-to-play model or a buy-to-play model, and for like a very modest price or possibly free, nothing, somebody could be in the starter zones and the starting cities and just screaming and yelling, just happy to be there, just like literally chatting as a character about nonsense. And it's definitely a different environment when anybody can log in and just be part of the experience without having an interest in actually playing the game. Can you imagine if like Saruta Baruta was just filled with people that had free accounts? They were just like, hey, I just felt like hopping in, screaming stuff, just wanted to run around, see what this is about, but they have no actual interest in playing Final Fantasy XI, because that's what would happen if it was totally free to play. I'm not saying that the free to play model would be entirely bad, especially at this stage in its life cycle, but back in like 2005, that would have been ridiculous. Although, would Final Fantasy XI be the most popular MMO now if it had like a 1 to 50 free to play experience? Probably not. It's still a ridiculous MMO that not everybody loves. But yeah, I thought this was interesting. The concept of gatekeeping. I don't even know what my point was at this point. I just was kind of thinking about New World and its buy-to-play model of $40 and you're in and you're playing forever, versus Final Fantasy XI, where I've spent thousands of dollars over the years just in my like $13 a month subscription fee, which is insane. But the concept of gatekeeping, of keeping people in or out of the game for simple, small reasons, some of which are financial and some of which are just difficulty to enter. But it does dramatically change the 11 experience, as well as the experience of other games that use different models. I know Elder Scrolls Online tried basically every payment model they could before they finally landed on the current one, which I think is like a free-to-play with optional subscription model with stuff that you can buy. I don't know. They've got like a million ways you can pay them, but I never seem to. I just like, I guess no, I did buy the DLCs though. They're getting me there. But I'm not really trying to prove a point. Just kind of talking about how Final Fantasy XI's payment structure really shaped how the experience was. Like to this day, subscribing to Final Fantasy XI is a commitment to play that game, and I'm not always ready to make that commitment. Usually I am. Actually, I don't even remember the last time I unsubscribed. Part of that is because of the YouTube channel. I always need to be able to capture footage and stuff. But I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think Final Fantasy XI would have been better with a different payment model? Do you think it could use a different one now? Would you like to see something like a free-to-play with a cash shop, buy-to-play with a cash shop with less cash shopping? What is the difference between free-to-play and buy-to-play with a cash shop in terms of the cash shop itself? I feel like nothing. I feel like the cash shops end up being identical. I don't know. Let me know. I want to know your thoughts. Otherwise, keep on the lookout for more videos like this. Join us on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Twitch. We do stream every week to do, a lot of Final Fantasy XI, but a lot of other games as well. Might do New World this week. Who knows? Otherwise, keep on the lookout for more videos like this, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace. What's happening here? I'm harvesting a grave. Oh my god! What? Why? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to disturb you, sir. Why am I harvesting a tree? That is not